So we hated each other.
No, and you used the word hated too.
Magic Johnson, one of the greatest point guards in NBA history, defined Showtime basketball with the Lakers in the 1980s. But as competitive as he was, Magic had a short list of opponents he truly hated to face. These weren't casual rivalries, but players who pushed him to the limit, frustrated him with their style, or embarrassed him on the biggest stages. From heated Eastern Conference rivals to Western challengers who derailed the Lakers' dominance, each left a mark on Magic's career. Let's break down 6 players Magic himself admitted gave him the most trouble and fueled some of the most intense battles of his Hall of Fame run. You expect a Magic Johnson video without Larry Bird, right? Let's talk about the most famous rivalry in the history of basketball.
When the pressure was on, and I tell you, Larry Bird.
The story between Magic Johnson and Larry Bird didn't begin in the NBA. It started in college, on the biggest stage of all. In 1979, Magic's Michigan State team faced Bird's Indiana State in the NCAA championship game. That night became one of the most watched college basketball games ever, and it set the tone for everything that followed. Magic came out on top, but the rivalry was only just beginning. When the two moved into the NBA, their paths collided constantly. Magic with the Lakers, Bird with the Celtics, and the two franchises defined the decade. They met in the finals 3 times, in 1984, 1985, and 1987. Each series brought its own storylines, and each meeting fueled the growing sense that these two players represented more than themselves. It was style versus style, city versus city. And for Magic personally, it was one man he simply could not ignore. Magic has been open about how deep the feelings ran. In one interview, he said flat out, "The players today don't hate each other. I hated Larry and every Celtic." The word wasn't chosen lightly. Part of that emotion came from the way the two were covered in the media. Bird was praised endlessly for his scoring, while Magic's assists were treated as less important. He admitted years later, "People don't count assists the way they do points." Did I resent the attention he got for that? Of course. It was honest frustration, and it added to the edge every time they stepped on the floor together. Magic never saw Bird as a friend back then. He didn't want Bird to like him. In his mind, the job was simple: compete, win, and keep the distance.
So we hated each other.
No, and you used the word hated too. I saw the
That intensity showed itself on the court in countless ways. Bird wasn't shy about talking, and Magic heard plenty of it. One story recalls Bird saying mid-play, "I don't know why you're running out here. I'm going to wait until you get one step away, then shoot in your face." And he did exactly that. Magic's agent later shared another moment when Bird told Magic before a game, "Sit back, I'm going to put on a show tonight." He then dropped 40 points to back it up. That was Bird's style. He talked, then he delivered, and it gnawed at Magic. Their finals meetings added even more fuel. The most famous came in 1987 Game 4, when Magic hit the hook shot over Bird to seal the win. That single play became part of NBA history, but it was also another chapter in the ongoing battle. Every time they faced each other, the tension was real. Bird was the scorer, Magic was the facilitator. Each game felt like a test of which identity mattered more. And for Magic, the constant comparison created both respect and resentment.
Also, you're fighting to try to be the best of the NBA.
As time passed, the rivalry softened. The two grew older, and the intensity gave way to friendship. They appeared together in commercials, worked together on projects, and came to symbolize one of the most important rivalries the sport has ever had. But even as the relationship warmed, Magic never hid how he felt in the early years. He said many times that the hate was real. Bird, for his part, downplayed it, insisting there was never true hate, only respect. But he also admitted the competition was unlike anything else he experienced. Magic summed it up best. He said his job was to go out there and kick Bird's butt, just as Bird's job was to do the same to him. With Bird, Magic's foe turned into a friend. However, with Isaiah Thomas, it was the other way around. Let's see why Johnson hated Thomas so much.
Probably one of the closest people to me. No question about it.
The story between Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas was complicated from the start. They weren't just rivals across the floor. For a time, they were close, even calling each other friends, the kind of bond you rarely saw between two stars leading championship teams. They hugged before games, shared moments off the court, and looked like two players who respected each other deeply. But underneath that surface, cracks were forming. And by the late 80s, those cracks widened into one of the NBA's most famous fallouts.
Once we showed up in the finals, things changed.
Part of the tension was rooted in their teams. The Lakers represented Showtime, built on pace, flair, and fast breaks. The Pistons carried the identity of the Bad Boys, a group defined by physical defense and intimidation. That contrast fueled the rivalry, but Magic has admitted it went beyond basketball. There were personal cuts that changed how he viewed Isaiah. One of them came when Isaiah made comments suggesting Larry Bird was overrated because of his race. Magic quickly distanced himself from that, saying he disagreed. That disagreement planted doubt in their relationship. Later, during Magic's health crisis in 1991, rumors swirled that Isaiah had spread personal gossip. Magic believed it at the time, and it created a lasting wound. ESPN's Broken Bonds documentary captured just how deep that hurt ran. The Dream Team only added fuel. Heading into the 1992 Olympics, Thomas was one of the best point guards in the league, yet he was left off the roster. The decision was never explained publicly, but many suspected that Magic, along with Jordan and Bird, had a hand in it. Whether that was true or not, the belief stuck. For Isaiah, it felt like betrayal. For Magic, it was confirmation that their friendship had already collapsed.
Johnson says he was responsible for keeping Isaiah Thomas off the original Dream Team.
On the court, the rivalry was just as sharp. The Lakers and Pistons clashed in back-to-back finals in 1988 and 1989, delivering some of the most physical series of the decade. Magic tried to run the offense with his usual rhythm, while Isaiah and the Pistons made every possession a grind. In those years, the tension between them stretched beyond the games. Magic has recalled feeling like Thomas had broken a personal trust, pointing specifically to the rumors connected to his agent, Lon Rosen, about his HIV status. Even if Thomas denied them, Magic carried the sense of betrayal with him. Layered on top of the Dream Team controversy, it made the rivalry feel heavier than the usual battles between great players. It took decades before the two men repaired things. In 2017, they sat across from each other in a televised conversation, and the reconciliation was emotional. Both cried, both apologized. Magic admitted he had carried anger for years, and he described the relationship as always balancing between love and hurt. Isaiah maintained that he never betrayed Magic, denying the stories that fueled the resentment, but he acknowledged the damage had already been done. Looking back, their rivalry shows that hate in basketball doesn't always come from trash talk or hard fouls. Sometimes it grows from broken trust. Magic's feelings toward Isaiah weren't only about how the Pistons challenged the Lakers in the finals. They were tied to loyalty, to personal ground, and to the sense that a close friendship had collapsed into something bitter. That's why when Magic talks about players he hated, Isaiah Thomas stands apart from the rest. The next guy Magic hated was out of the league by the time Johnson got drafted. But still, they had their duels off an NBA hardwood, and Magic really ended up hating Wilt Chamberlain. Magic Johnson and Wilt Chamberlain never met in an NBA game. Wilt retired in 1973, 6 years before Magic entered the league. But their paths still crossed in Los Angeles during the early 1980s, in scrimmages that have become part of basketball legend. Wilt would show up at UCLA runs, in pickup games, and even at Lakers practices.
Wilt Chamberlain's playing with 4 of my freshmen against Magic.
Magic has talked about those scrimmages and the way Wilt went out of his way to dominate him. Wilt was in his mid-40s, but still stood 7'1" and weighed over 300 pounds. Magic was 20, fresh into the league, and still finding his footing. The difference in size and experience made those games feel unfair at times. Wilt treated them like the finals. He backed down younger players, dunked with power, and made every possession a statement. Magic often felt like he was being singled out, as though Wilt was trying to prove a point at his expense. Looking back, he said those runs frustrated him because Wilt turned them into personal battles.
Game point, Magic throws a skyhook, Wilt blocks it.
Stories from those games have been retold many times. Wilt swatting shots into the stands, Wilt dunking hard enough to shake the rim, and Wilt running his mouth, reminding everyone how things were done in his era. Magic, more than anyone else, absorbed the punishment.
And Magic took the ball. He said, "Game over, next."
One line that stuck with him was Wilt telling the young Lakers, "You couldn't hang in my era." It was a direct challenge, a way of dismissing the new wave of stars. Magic hated that tone. To him, it felt like condescension from a legend who wouldn't give him respect. The friction didn't stay in the gym. Wilt made comments in interviews about how players from his time were stronger, tougher, and smarter. He went as far as suggesting that his 1972 Lakers could beat the Showtime Lakers at their peak. For Magic, that was a jab at everything he was building in Los Angeles. He interpreted those comments as a lack of recognition for his accomplishments, and it stung. Even when the two men smiled for photos or appeared friendly in public, the relationship had a competitive edge. Magic has admitted that Wilt never let him off easy, and that he felt targeted more than once.
He blocked every shot. 43 years old. He was blocking everything.
With time, Magic's view softened. He came to appreciate Wilt as a presence in LA basketball culture and respected him as one of the pioneers of the sport. But as a young player, those scrimmages left scars. That story became part of NBA lore. Wilt, even in semi-retirement, still owned the court. Magic, still learning, had to deal with the weight of history pressing down on him. In later reflections, Magic put Wilt among the toughest men he ever dealt with, even though they never played a real NBA game against each other. For Magic, the battles with Wilt weren't official, but they were unforgettable. Speaking of GOATs, let's see why Johnson hated Michael Jordan so much.
He was hesitant to surrender his place on the mountaintop.
The rivalry between Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan became one of the defining storylines at the end of one era and the start of another. Magic had carried the 1980s, winning 5 championships and leading the Showtime Lakers through a decade of dominance. Jordan entered the league hungry to take over the next 10 years. By the time the two met in the 1991 NBA Finals, the stage was set for what many called a passing of the torch.
And Michael, being Michael, he needed to say no.
The Lakers were still strong, but the core was aging. Magic remained brilliant, still capable of controlling tempo, but his team no longer had the same speed or defensive edge it once did. Across from them, Jordan's Bulls were young, athletic, and determined to prove they were ready to run the league. Magic admired Jordan's skill, but admitted later that he hated playing against him. Jordan's competitiveness didn't let up for a second. Magic had always been the one who dictated pace, but against Jordan, he often found himself playing catch-up, and he despised that feeling. Off the court, the comparisons never stopped. Media outlets framed every game between them as a battle for the title of best player alive. For Magic, it was a fight to protect his generation's dominance, while Jordan was out to claim his time. The 1991 Finals turned into the ultimate flashpoint. The Bulls won the series in 5 games, Jordan averaging over 31 points with double-digit assists and 6 rebounds a night. Magic nearly averaged a triple-double himself, but even his brilliance wasn't enough to hold back the wave of youth and pressure Chicago applied. The series is remembered for Jordan's switch-hand layup in Game 2, a play replayed endlessly, and one that Magic later admitted stuck in his mind as a symbol of the shift. From that moment, the balance of power was clear. There were layers of tension running through that series. Reports describe Jordan and Magic trading barbs throughout games. Jordan teased Magic about his age, while Magic leaned on his experience in passing to steady his team. After it was over, Magic told teammates that Jordan was the first guy who really took it from us. The loss carried weight because it was basically the end of the Showtime era. The rivalry carried into 1992 when they both joined the Dream Team. In practice, the battles reignited. Magic tried to maintain his role as veteran leader, but Jordan dominated those scrimmages. Teammates recalled the intensity, with Jordan making it clear he was the alpha now. The sessions were heated, competitive to the edge of hostility, and they added another chapter to the story of their rivalry.
He was hesitant to surrender his place.
Magic never beat Jordan in the playoffs, and the 1991 Finals stood as the line between two eras. Showtime gave way to the Bulls dynasty, and for Magic, Jordan represented the mountain he couldn't climb. In later interviews, Magic admitted the respect was always there, but he described the experience of facing Jordan as hell because of how relentless he was. Over time, they grew into close friends, often reminiscing about their battles, but Magic never hid his frustration. Jordan's presence reminded him of the moment his own run ended. Legacy-wise, Jordan became the player who overtook him, not with words, but with results. That final series, the practices in Barcelona, and Jordan's constant drive made him one of the few opponents Magic openly admitted he hated going against. For Magic, Jordan was the one who closed the door on Showtime. It's rare that players from the 80s talk about rivals they hated without mentioning Bill Laimbeer, and Magic Johnson isn't an exception. He really hated Bill.
To Isaiah and his bad boy Pistons,
Bill Laimbeer was the face of the Detroit Pistons' Bad Boys era, known for his physical play, constant fouls, and willingness to fight anyone. The Pistons and Lakers collided in back-to-back NBA Finals in the late 80s, making Laimbeer a direct rival of Magic Johnson at the highest stage. Laimbeer was more than tough guy. He was also one of the league's best big men at drawing charges and setting bruising screens, which directly disrupted the Lakers' fast-paced style. Magic's Lakers were known for finesse, speed, and Showtime. Detroit's Bad Boys thrived on slowing opponents down, being physical in the paint, and getting into opponents' heads. This naturally made Laimbeer one of Magic's least favorite opponents. Contemporary accounts often describe Magic's visible frustration with Laimbeer's antics, from late shoves to trash talk, and teammates recalling that he hated the way Laimbeer played because it felt unsportsmanlike compared to the Lakers' style. The 1988 NBA Finals were the first true test between Magic and Laimbeer. The Lakers barely won the series in 7 games, but Laimbeer's bruising style left its mark. Pistons coach Chuck Daly openly said their plan as a team was to wear down Magic with physicality, and Laimbeer was central to that. In the rematch next year, the Pistons swept the Lakers 4-0, partly because both Magic and Byron Scott went down with hamstring injuries. But Laimbeer's presence set the tone, banging with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and bodying Lakers players every possession. The perception was clear. Laimbeer and the Pistons had bullied Showtime into submission.
To me, one of the greatest teams as well.
Several confrontations stand out, including hard fouls on Magic during drives, and Laimbeer's constant arguing with officials. Magic, usually calm, was seen jawing back at Laimbeer multiple times, rare for his demeanor. The Lakers openly admitted they despised Laimbeer's tactics. James Worthy later said, "We respected the Pistons, but nobody liked Laimbeer." That sentiment reflected Magic's feelings as well. The rivalry between Magic and Laimbeer symbolized the clash between Showtime finesse and Bad Boys brutality. For Magic, Laimbeer represented the type of player who ruined the flow of basketball with cheap fouls and antagonizing behavior. Even years later, when both were retired, Laimbeer embraced his villain role, saying he didn't care about being liked, only about winning. That attitude explained why so many stars, Magic included, placed him high on their most hated lists. Magic later described the Pistons era as the toughest basketball he ever played, and Laimbeer was always the first name that came up when discussing those battles. In broader NBA history, the Lakers-Pistons finals of 1988 and 1989 remain defining chapters, remembered for both Magic's brilliance and his visible frustration with Laimbeer's brand of basketball. And the last player Magic admitted of hating is Ralph Sampson, for a reason most Lakers fans will understand completely. Ralph Sampson came into the league in 1983 as the top pick for the Houston Rockets. Standing 7'4" with rare agility, he was expected to become the centerpiece of the franchise. When Houston paired him with Hakeem Olajuwon, the Twin Towers frontcourt changed the Western Conference picture. Their rise created a new threat for Magic Johnson and the Lakers, who had dominated the path to the finals for most of the decade. For Magic, Houston was the first Western team that could truly disrupt Showtime's flow. Sampson's size forced the Lakers into half-court battles, slowing down the pace that had carried them to so many wins. The pressure reached its peak in the 1986 Western Conference Finals, when the Rockets shocked the basketball world by taking the series in 5 games. It was the first time during Showtime that Magic's team looked overmatched, and Sampson was right in the middle of it. Game 5 delivered the lasting memory. Sampson scored 29 points, capped off by a turnaround shot at the buzzer to send Houston to the finals. The Lakers walked off stunned, and the Rockets celebrated what many saw as the arrival of a new powerhouse. Magic admitted years later that the size and mobility of Houston's front line left them scrambling, and Sampson's ability to move like a forward while standing over 7 feet tall was the difference.
And we talked to Magic these days, said, "Look, Magic, you won the first game."
The series had its share of physical tension. Sampson wasn't only scoring, he leaned on defenders, blocked shots, and mixed it up with Lakers players. A scuffle with Mitch Kupchak captured the frustration that was building. For Magic, those games weren't just tough losses. They were bruising reminders that his team could be forced out of its rhythm by pure size. Sampson's career didn't maintain that level because of injuries, but his role in 1986 left a permanent mark. For Magic, the Rockets' win stood out as one of the rare times when the Lakers' confidence was broken. The Lakers came back to win more titles later, but that series was never forgotten. Magic has said in interviews that Sampson and Olajuwon together gave them some of the hardest matchups of his career. For him, Sampson wasn't a rival built on trash talk or personal bad blood. He was a rival who forced Showtime to bend, and that memory placed him firmly among the players Magic hated going up against. Magic Johnson always carried himself with a smile, but certain players left him frustrated in ways he rarely admitted at the time. Those rivalries tell us as much about him as the championships. If you liked hearing this side of the story, hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into basketball history.